Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this online session from Lords IT about Power Automate, formerly Flow, and SharePoint. Welcome to those that have come from various different places to come and be part of this. This is quite a technical session on how we've set up the flows. We're going to run through how we've created one for attendance, leave requests, and how we've used them in schools as well. And we're actually going to build one from scratch. So feel free to follow along on your own devices. So we are going to be going through a bit of a PowerPoint, which hopefully will help you understand the basics, and then jump into actually creating one live as well. If you've got any questions, then Jake is on the question and answer panel. We'll be able to pick them up for you and ask away if we need them. So feel free to ask any questions that you may have for now. So if we jump straight in, and we'll go through the PowerPoint. I used some training, some on-site training a while ago, and was allowed to be in the same room as each other instead of being like this over the internet. So what's it all about then? So Power Automate, as I say, formerly Flow even. And if I talk about Flow, then I mean in Power Automate. They changed the name a few months ago to fit in with the wider branding they're doing on Office 365. So it's all about taking data and creating a flow of that data and getting it to do certain tasks after a trigger. So you can use lots of different applications across Office 365 to either perform the trigger or to perform the action afterwards. So I'll take you through some of those as well. And it can be really used in our world, in the educational IT world, in automating tasks in a school environment. So I'll show you, give you an outline of what we've done as Lords IT and how we've used it, and give you an idea of how you may want to use it in your school as well. So we've already implemented this across schools and for ourselves as well. So feel free to learn from it, basically. Sorry, I need to get used to doing more than one thing at once and following some questions. So yes, it will be available as a recording afterwards to the person who's just asked that. Okay, so moving along, let's have a look at the main components. So obviously SharePoint, hopefully you know what SharePoint is. It's your online equivalent of your shared drives, is what we tell our users. But in particular for this, we're actually looking at SharePoint lists, which I'll come on to in a bit more detail in a minute. You can also though use SharePoint document libraries, and obviously within SharePoint you can create pages for content as well. So SharePoint can obviously be used on your devices as well, but that's where we're going to use the data, collect and store the data, which then triggers the flows and stuff to happen. As an extension from this, the data in SharePoint and the resultant flows can be activated from a Power App. So you can create a Power App quite quickly for Office 365. And when the data is inserted through the Power App into SharePoint, that will then trigger the flow as well. So you can use this for all kinds of stuff in that way. So why specifically a SharePoint list? Well, it's because it's like an online Excel spreadsheet, as I say. But it's a really easy way to share the information into SharePoint and put it into there. If you've not used it before, we'll run you through how to create one in a minute. You can use multiple different sections of it to trigger the flow. So whether that's the creation, editing, or deletion of an item, and you can also get the actual flows themselves to do some updating as well. So you can have, for example, one flow can trigger when data is put into one SharePoint list, and it can copy the data from that SharePoint list into another one, which could then trigger a further flow. So you can link up all the data that you have quite easily and put all around through SharePoint. So there are 4 ways to schedule a flow or to make it kick off, to trigger it, which is the term that they use. The first one's an automated, so that will be, for example, on creation of a SharePoint list item. It could be when a document's modified in a SharePoint library. It could be various other ways of doing it, but they need to have a trigger, and once the trigger's triggered, then the rest will happen. Instant flow, it allows you to have a button and press that, so you can have that on your phone. but you could also have that on, if it's on the SharePoint list, at the top of the SharePoint list. As far as I can tell, those buttons are individual, so it's your flow. So that's not so great as the automated one, which triggers, doesn't matter who causes it to trigger, but the instant flow is limited to an individual. As far as I've seen, you can share them with others. So that's something I'd have to look into, actually, whether if you share them with others, they go up on their screen. Schedule flow makes sense, that that's just a scheduled time period. And the business process flow, you have to use Power Apps and stuff with like that. We're going to focus today on the automated flow. It could be turned into an instant flow that's triggered by yourself, but we're going to do the automated flow today. So a typical flow will always start with a trigger, and then it can go through any number of different actions. Here I've demonstrated where it's got an approval, which will give you a yes or no. And then depending on the outcome of yes or no, it will then allow you to do next steps from that. I've got some that trigger 4, 5 in the approval option. So if it's not X, is it Y? If it's not Y, is it A? And it keeps them going in the tree. It's quite a hefty flow, but you can have multiple nested in multiple approvals. So for example, it goes to somebody on lower management. If they approve it, it goes to upper management, and then so forth. So the action, as I said, these actions are around a wide range of Office 365 tools. So that'll be email, it could be creating a list, updating a list, calendar, Excel document, creating a task, all through the different Office 365 tools. And I'll show you some of them as we're building one in a little bit. Additional actions, so once you've done one, you can do another one. There's no limit to how many actions that you can do, and then at the end of the process, you tell it when the end is and when the flow is completed. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create a flow about a SharePoint cover system. So this could be to cover lessons, or it could be a leave request system, and this is how it's going to work. So the cover is going to be requested in SharePoint. The user is going to then have to get approval of somebody, and we'll build in the approval process. The cover is then approved by the individual, and then actions happen. So email the cover manager, it will save the cover work in the folder, and it'll add cover to a shared calendar as well. So we'll build in some of those elements as well. And then if the, in this case, and this one that I was demonstrating before, if the reason is that somebody's on the course, it will then start to fill in the return to work process or the course request, depending on the reason for absence or leave request. Okay, so no questions yet because we haven't even started. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen now. Let me just get Teams Manager back up so I can see what everybody's doing. Okie dokie. So on here you see I've got Power Automate already in here. If you can't see it on yours, you need to head to All Apps, and that's where it will be hiding. But we don't actually need to go there first. What we're going to do is we're going to go and build our form first. So we're going to build our collection, a data collection tool first. So we've got some data then to action when the flow actually is triggered. So if we go into SharePoint, what I'll do is I'll use this handy one that I used in a training session earlier on. So this is my training with Matt folder. And what I actually want is to create a new list. Now I'm the owner of this SharePoint, so I can create this. So you need to be the owner of the SharePoint. Click on New, go down to List, and let's give this a name. Okay. So that's created our leave approval, and you'll see our list here. Now, the really cool thing with these lists is the ability to have different types of information inputted into them. And you can do that by using all these different types of SharePoint list options. So they're really quite neat and handy to use. Unfortunately, you are stuck with this title one. You can get rid of it. I'm not going to at this point. I'm happy to share the documentation with people how to get rid of the title bit. For now, we're just going to rename it. It is just a normal text field, and we're going to, it's what people generally click on to get into that particular entry. So we will, at this point, we're going to call this person requesting leave. Now, you could just use one of the default ones there of created by. However, it might not be the person who's created it that's requesting the leave. You could also, depending on if the people are within your organization, use the person option here as well. And that allows you to search Office 365 user directory and put their name in there as well. And that gives you a load of other extras in there. So I've got the person requesting the leave. I'm actually going to change that. I'm going to have that to be input and leave. So let me do that, person input and leave. Okay, and then my next field is going to be the person one. So the person requesting leave. I don't want to allow the selection of groups at this time. So click save there. And I'm going to have a drop down for choice, for reason, for absence, no leave, got to be leave. And the choices are going to be holiday, medical, and other. We'll keep it simple for now. And then we're going to have a column which is date. So first day of leave. So I'm going to include time. I'm going to choose a friendly format as well. And I'm going to do that again and have a last day of leave as well. Oh, that's not how we spell that. Okay, so we put our last day of leave in there. We've got date and time, including time, and including the friendly format again. Okay, so at the moment, that's everything that I need in my flow. Just a simple form. So to put something into my form, I can click new. So the person inputting the leave is Matt. Person requesting the leave, this is where it will search Office 365. So I can go down to me, select my reason, put in my first day. Go on holiday today, I think. And we'll come back on the 3rd of April. And we'll come back at midnight, why not? Save that. So that's my first thing. So what do I need to do from here? Okay, well, the first thing I want to do is I just want to put in a few checks and balances on my SharePoint list. So I don't want people to be able to see other people's requests for obvious reasons. So we now go into list settings, and we could use permissions for this, but actually that's just doing it the hard way. If we go into advanced settings, and we use here, so the create and edit items that were created by the user, and read items that are created by the user. So we're going to save that. And we're also going to go down to I got to remember where it is, in the form settings. Don't know that one. I'll edit this out in the video, no doubt. What am I looking to see? The views. I think this is where I need to go. That's it. Down the bottom of the views page, we will see here that we can show items only when the following is true. So in here, I want to do me. And so show items when the column created by is equal to me, or when the column request is on there, person requesting leave, if that's equal to me as well. So if you have both of those as the Office 365 person searcher, it will look up and match If it's you, you'll only be able to see the ones that you've created in there. So that's a very useful tool. So you don't have to get into permissions. It literally just says, well, if you're this person, you can see the options in here, and that's how you lock it down from different people seeing different things on there. So that's my first entry into my list. I've got everything that I need there. Now I'm going to jump across and start building my flow. So if I go here, I could literally just create a flow. And it gives me all these different options on here as well. But I'm not actually going to go in that way. It is useful to know that you can do that way, because sometimes if you just want to do a really quick one, it fills in all the details. But we're going to start from scratch. We're going to be rebels. So if we go across to Power Automate, okay, so within Power Automate, we can see that we've got the create option here. And you can see this screenshot as from before, sorry. So I could use one of these ones down here to give me some options, but we're going to do it from scratch. So I'm going to click on automated flow, and I'm going to give it a flow name of Matt's training. Okay, so I'm just going to create, I'm going to skip that and just create this one here. So the first thing that it's asking me for is my trigger. Now we're already using SharePoint, so my trigger is going to be when an item is created or modified. So it's really important to choose the right one between when it's just created or modified, because you might want it to do something when it's modified as well. So I'm going to use when an item is created or modified. So this is my trigger. I get to click in here and it shows me all of our different SharePoint sites. So I'm going to use Lords IT, and my list name is the one that I've just created. It wasn't in Lords IT at all. It was in Training with Matt, and the leave approval one. Okay, so that's my trigger. So basically, when an item is created or modified in this SharePoint site, okay, within this list, then do the next step. That's the basics of it. So let's click next step. What do I want it to do? Well, the very first thing I wanted to do is to ask me for if I approve it or not, because if I don't approve it, there's no point going through with any other sections. So I use the control condition here, and I've got a very simple outcome. So if my I've missed a step, but if on here, if my approval equals approved or denied, sorry, if it equals approve, then that's a yes, and I can put those details in there. If it's a no, then it will follow this branch here. But obviously I've forgotten to put in an approval. So handily I can just click in between the two, and obviously I meant to do that. And if I just type approval in here, here's my approval. So we're going to use create an approval, select an approval type. So these are pretty self-explanatory. If you do have multiple people in there, you can choose to have it everyone approving or just one person who gets to it first. So depending on what you need, if everybody needs to agree, you must use the everyone must approve. If the other one you want everyone, just one person out of the group can get to it and approve it, you can have that one. So we'll go for that one in this case. So, so we're going to use here. Now you'll see on the right hand side that Matthew can't spell, but you'll also see that on the right hand side we start to have some of the fields from our SharePoint list. Okay, so these ones down here from the SharePoint list, you can see this is why we created it first, so we can include that information here. So when I've used the created by, because that's actually picked up an Office 365 user, it gives me all the other details of that Office 365 user. So I'm going to have this leave request. I'm going to have it created by display name there. Or if I come down, I'm pretty sure I had the person requesting leave yet. So I'm going to use their display name there. So it gets a display name from Office 365, and we'll put it in there. So the title of my request will be person requesting leave. And who do I want it assigned to? Well, at this point, let's have it to me. Where's my account? There we go. So that it's going to come through to me here as well. Now, Markdown, I only found this out the other day, is by using hashes on the screen to put the information in. Now, I know people who've used this where they don't even come into the Power Automate screen or even use the app on their phone to get the approvals done. They literally just do it all through email, and I'll show you actually some of the features that we've put into those ones in a minute, so you can have a play with those. So this is the email that goes to the user and says, do you want to approve it or not? So we actually need quite a bit of information in this little bit here. So we've already got the person requesting it at the top, but let's just put that in there. So leave request for, we're going to do display name again. Person requesting leave display name. Okay, and then we're going to put first date of leave, and put it's our first day of leave. So it's very much like a mail merge. And then we put in our end date of leave, and then underneath that put oh dear. Okay, so we can put a link into there. So if you type in ID here, you can grab the ID, or if you type in link, it'll create a link to the item. So we can put that straight into there. Just put link to request into this one here. So that's our approval. And if the value, so here we've got the approval outcome is what we're looking for. So we see we've got put the approval in, and it's given us all this extra information for the approval. And the one that we're looking for is the approval outcome, which I would have thought would have been up the top there. Approvers email. Okay, so we've got let's just come out of that, save that. In here, we should be able to put the approval outcome. So I'm not sure where that one's gone at the moment. It's always what you want on a live help desk thing, for the information not to be there. Additional details about the request, no. Well, we'll use this one now. So it's equal to, so if it's equal to my name, because I'm the only person on there, then we'll have the yes. So it's put an apply to each on this point here. This is because there could be multiple approvers on the list, so we would need to cycle through each individual approver to then decide what to do next. But as there's only me, it's no big deal on this one. It just has to have it. Normally there isn't the option. There is the option to have if the approval outcome is equal to approved or denied. You can just pop that in there. Unfortunately, you can't at the moment. I'm not sure what it is, and good last time I tried. So if yes, what do we want it to do? Well, first of all we want it to email, and that's very, very easy. You literally tell it to send an email. So use Office 365 Outlook and send an email. Now you'll see there's different V2s or V3s on these. They don't mean anything other than the different versions, and some work and some don't, helpfully. I'm sure there's documentation available about which ones you should use and which ones you shouldn't use. I just use V2 because it works on here. So on here, I want the email to go to 2 people. So I want the email to go to the person who requested it and the approver email as well. So I want them to see the email, so they've both got a copy of the email that goes. So your leave request, and in here we'll put the details of the leave request. So thanks for your request of leave from, if we type in here, first day of leave to here for reason, this has been approved and entered into the team calendar. So the other thing that we'll do here as well, we'll go to search for the approval here and see, have we had, no, we can't do that anymore either. So I need to look at that approval, why it's changed. Sometimes you're allowed to put a request into there, and you're able to get the response back from, like, if you put a comment on the approval. So somebody just asked, what's the difference between hash and double hash? So that's markdown. If you search for Power Automate markdown, it gives you these examples here. So it shows you the first one is a H1, second one is H2, 3 is H3, etc., etc. So that's similar to HTML, and being able to put them into there as well, and how you can break up lines and such like as well, put in lists. So if you just give that a quick Google, so actually by mine, I've done it the wrong way around. Mine gets smaller to bigger, but you know, it's all good fun. So down here, we've got all that here. This is actually a HTML email, so I can have that in a table or some such like. You won't be able to edit the HTML that well in here. If you click on code view, you can see it. I'd recommend doing it in a HTML editor and copying it across. But bear in mind, it is an email, and email HTML is nothing like website HTML, but you can get a decent table up and put an image in and such like if you want to. Okay, so that's you can do that quite easily. If you go down to the show advanced options on the email, you can choose to send as. Now, it will come from the person who's created the flow unless you give somebody else permissions into the flow, which I'll show you how to do in a little bit. So at the moment, it's all going through me. So every single one will come from me. And actually, the emails going out do show up in my sent items. So you can see what they're doing. Downside of that is if you're sending lots of them out, people start replying to them thinking it's you that have done them. And depending on what you're approving or not approving, you should get some nice emails on that. So it may be worth setting up a separate email account and giving that email account the rights onto this, so that it comes from an unmonitored address if you want to. But that's the step you can take if you need to. So you can CC people into the approval. So if I had somebody, and I have got somebody, Steph, who checks them and whatever, she can get a copy of that email, which each one's approved, and she can log that internally in a way if I needed to. I can also put on attachments if I want to. Now, attachments are notoriously difficult in Power Automate. You need to learn some code if there are multiple attachments for it to put them on there, but it is possible, and I'm more than happy to talk people through that if they want to find out how to do that. So down here, we can also set the importance just like you would do on a normal email. So far on my flow, when I create something, it's going to look for an approval and it's going to email me. So I'm going to save that and we're going to test that out. Now, I'm not sure if that approval setting will work, so let's give that a try now. We'll go into SharePoint. We'll go into the training with Matt group, and we'll go into the leave approval. So along I come, I want to put a new. Now, it's interesting to note that you can copy a link from here directly to the form, so they can use that link straight away. In addition, you can also edit the form, and you can customize it in Power Apps, and that just makes you allows you to make it look pretty and put some nice effects on there if you want to do so. It's worth a go. I have noticed a few problems with it though. For example, the timing on the date and time entry form, it doesn't allow you to put a time in, which isn't great. And the reason why we've got the timing on the first and last day of leave is because when we're putting in the calendar, you might want it to be from when they would start working to when they end start working. So the reminders that you get or whatever from the calendar don't pop up in the middle of the night. That's just from personal experience from my end on that one. So well, let's put in the person inputting the leave. So we'll put that as Doris, and the person requesting leave is me. I am. My reasons for leave, let's give it to other. The first day of leave is going to be tomorrow, and we're going to start our leave at 8 a.m. We're going to end our leave on the 4th at let's go for 4 o'clock in the morning. Why not? Now you see that you've got by default an attachments option there. You can put attachments on there, and they can be sent via email as well. So if you added attachments there, it could be maybe a doctor's note or something else that you want proof on. It will be stored in that entry on SharePoint list, and it can also be attached to an email as well. So it's quite a useful thing to do. But bear in mind GDPR when you're doing it, and I'm not going to be able to give you any other advice on whether that's good or not, but we do it because it is, in our opinion, in our checks, it is a safe and secure way of doing that, but you need to refer to your DPO in that respect. So what I also just show you here is why we use this as well is in terms of being able to use the data afterwards as somebody who might be in charge of it. So I can export that data to Excel quite easily. But what I can also do is group by these fields. So here, so I can group by reason for leave. So I've got a reason for holiday and one for other. So obviously, if you've got more in there, you can have more options there for that grouped option to see what different people are taking on for a while, or you can do it for the person requesting leave to have a look at that as well. And new that you can now get is you can, on the bottom of a column on the right one, is you can have totals. Okay, so that could be a total count of how many people have had those individual types of reasons, for example. Could be an average, could be a maximum or minimum. So you might use that in this, is you might, in ours for Laws IT, we have a number of days of holiday used. So if they've booked, say, 2 weeks, they would have included weekends on that. So we ask them to type in how many days of holiday they're actually using. It might be there's a bank holiday in there as well, and they don't need to put that in. So say it's 2 weeks, that's 10 days. And then they can use those totals to have a live count of how much holiday that they've used and how much is remaining, all in one thing. So something should have happened now, and if it hasn't happened, that's okay, because it shows me, it will allow me to show you how you can do a bit of problem solving when things don't go. So if we go to my flows, and this is my flow with a catchy name there, and I'm just going to click to edit here. Okay. So first thing we have to do is find out that we've done the trigger wrong. And this is an important bit. So we've done the trigger wrong on here because we said when an item, no, we haven't, when an item is used or done. Here we go. So here is, let me show you that again. So if we go to test, and we've got using data from previous runs, I can see that my approval here, my thing went through and was succeeded. So that's going to mean that it didn't work because I haven't been asked to approve it at the moment. So how can we quickly get in to understand why it's not, even though it said it succeeded? Because here it will list every single run that's gone. So when I click on my run item, I can see it says it's run successfully, and I'm going to guess that's because the approval hasn't given it the right thing. So I can quickly click through and see all the information that I've been given as a result. So I can see all the information that's come through for the person requesting leave, for the reason, everything that the form's collected, and how it appears in here. And this really helps me to narrow down why something's not worked. So here we go. So in our approval, first to respond. Now I told it to say in my approval, if the let's go down. So that's the approval. So my condition here was if the expression said the user principal was Matthew Setchell, then to do the yes. It wasn't, so it went to no, and that didn't do anything. So it did actually work, but we need to find out on that approval and see what is it exactly looking for. Okay, so the user principal name has to be for the approver is actually their username. So that's fine. We'll go to edit, and we'll go to create an approval, and we'll go down here. So user principal name. So that should be okay. So then we save that. And really helpfully, I don't have to go through and do everything again. I can literally click on test, and I can click use data from previous runs, and I can do test again. And in front of me, I'll be able to see that flow launch through here. And I know this is going to work this time because it's already come up on my phone because I've got the app on there. So if you've got the Power Automate app on there, okay, then it will ask you for an approval. I'll say it's asked me for approval, so let's have a look. So I have been asked for an approval on there on my phone, but not come through to my email. So we just need to, that still hasn't matched up. So that's not a problem. Let's dive into this a little bit more. So if this approval here, approvals, approver email, approver ID. Well, if they've changed it, it's not very helpful. So the adaptive card of the approval, I wonder what that means. Let's type in here, approve. So here we go. The content approval status is equal to true. That's what we're looking for, hopefully. So say that again, and let's run that again. So that has come up on my phone as needing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new entry into my SharePoint and give that a go. Because sometimes what I've noticed is that if you do tell it to keep on reusing it, it keeps on getting the same data on there. So let's go into there and put in a new record. We have lots of holidays by the end of this training session. So new Boris, person requesting leave is still me. And we'll go for a medical reason this time. From the 1st to the 3rd. Save. So let's go back to my run history. Let's see if this will update in a sec with the new ones. It needs to take a little time to go through. Let me jump across to my email and make sure that, see if I'm getting a request email through. I can't show you my phone screen, but it is definitely coming through to my phone screen. Let's see. So I don't know if you can see that on there. It is coming through. Ah, yes. So you can see this coming through here. So let me switch over onto my screen so you can see that one. If we go into Outlook, we can see here these emails that I've had through for approval of the item or not. So it will come through into my email like this, and I've got the option to approve it or reject it as a result. So you can see here using the markdown, it's got bigger and small, well, it's got bigger because I put in more on there, so that was the markdown. Annoyingly, the dates on there, for some of them it will appear like this, and some of them it will appear like that. I've still got to nail down into the research and to find out why that is, because it does annoy me a lot that sometimes it's really nice and sometimes it's not when I use exactly the same settings in both. And I've also got the option here to link straight to it. So if I approve this, that's done now, and that will then carry on my next element in the flow. Okay, so in a minute, hopefully I'll get an email coming through telling me that it's been approved. So let me jump back into my flow. Let's have a look and see if that's going to work. So this again has done the approval, but it's still come out of the condition as false straight away. So we need to have a look into that. But I'm going to crack on now, just because of that approval not doing what I think it should do, which is kind of annoying in the middle of a live thing. I'll show you how I've got it set up somewhere else, and we can have a look at it. In fact, let's just jump there now. One of these lords, it helps if I name them right. So I'll show you what one that should look like when it actually works. So we've got our approval process here, and then in our condition, we've got response is equal to approve, and then it will go through this setting here. So I'll talk you through this one now, because I know this one works. So the first step of this is to create the email, which has got the approver name and the item link in there, and it's got the leave dates and the value. So that sends that out straight away if it's approved. If it's a no, it'll send through a very curt email saying it's been not been approved. Contact the person who said no, and it will actually change on the next step. It will go to update an item in SharePoint, and it will update that item to using the ID field to approve no, but actioned yes. So the staff member can see that they've been actioned, but it hasn't been approved on there. But if it has been approved, then this then comes through and it will update the item and it will say yes, and it will say that it's been approved and it's been actioned. And then it will go in and create a group event. So these are all steps that you can add just by pressing the plus button here, and it will create a group event. And Lords IT is my group ID. So this is my Office 365 group, and it will put this element in here into the calendar with a start and an end time, which is why it's important, because it puts those start and end times in to the calendar so you can quickly see it. And then it will create an event in another calendar as well, in the IT holidays calendar. And lastly, it will email across to Steph, who's our admin person, for her to update her records as well. So let's just see actually how this one works to give you an idea of one that goes from start to finish. And then you'll also be able to see what we do on the Lords IT setup as well. So if I go to the SharePoint and I go to Lords IT, so we've got loads of systems built using this. If I scroll down here, we've got the performance management built in, the return to work, the ability for them to update their own personal details because we're not on Sims as a central team, request leave, which is obviously one I'll show you, and then the ability then to view their holiday requests as well. My equipment inventory for them to log any stuff that they've got. We've got this ability here to provide equipment and software quotes. So what this means is that we don't buy stuff for schools, we provide the information. So we can click on there, fill in the form, and it will email it out with the 3 quotes attached to the finance information there. And it gets all that information from our customer list. So all that information is in our customer list, and what we use is a lookup from that list on everything else we do. So if we add a new school, it goes into customer list, and then we can use any of the other ones with that school code. So it goes to the right people, so the right finance people and everything in there as well. We've got all these other tools on here as well, and then we've just got basic lists for information. So everything from door codes, so we can get into the right door, server information, suppliers information, customer information, useful contacts. All it's stored on here, and it's all accessible from mobile phones as well. So one of my tasks really was to automate the running of the team as we've grown now to so many people, and Flow just makes it so easy to do. But let's go into this request leave option here, so we can click on here and show you a working one. So we put the staff name in here, and we're going to put the date the leave starts. We'll have that probably not in 1999. Go to today, go to the 1st, go down here. Oh, not the 1st. Into there, and we've got the time, so let's do that from 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so I don't know, 5 days, and we'll go for this is personal. We'll just put test. Okay, so staff requesting leave. So me and my team leader, this is my boss, so she gets the notice. Now, in here, you'll notice that we've got the approved and the actioned. They're editable in this view. That's because it's our techies and we trust them and we know when they'll do it or not do it. But for normal users, that's when you'd go in and edit the form, and you can remove those fields. So just bear that in mind. So that's why you'd use the edit the form, but we don't because we trust the team to do it. But you might do it if you know, dodgy people like teachers were in there, for example. So what we can see down here is these are the leave requests, and I can see that my leave request has gone through here. And if I jump across to my emails, I should have an approval for my own holiday. Here we go. So here's my approval. And I will approve that one. And actually, that one's just for the wrong thing, isn't it? That was for the one before. Let me see. Here you go. Is this? Nope. So I've just approved the one on the previous version. My approval has gone off to Anne. So let me just redo that. I'm getting confused on my window, so let me close some of these down now. And what I'll do is we'll go across to here. We'll view the flows here. So at the moment, you can see this one's still running because our approval hasn't been approved yet. Because I put in for it to go to Anne rather than myself, I need to wait for Anne to approve it. So I'm just going to do a quick new one with myself as the approver, so I can show you everything that's going through it. So. I didn't want to go on. I want to go to SharePoint. Just leave all in today. Right. Let's jump across to our emails and wait for hopefully, here we go, the leave request. No, there's two. I've got to put a new rule in recently. So here's mine. If I approve it, let's approve this one as well. So you can do it through the app on your phone. They come up really quickly, so you don't have to be on here as well. You can also in here you can go onto action items as well in Power Automate, and it will list all the outstanding ones that you've got. So you can go through and approve those ones nice and quickly. So I see that I've got 2 here for me as well. So I can just approve these and put a message down here if I want to. It's very, very easy to do. So now I've done that, I go back to my inbox. So I've got duplicates of emails now because I'm the approver and the person requesting. So this is the one to the person saying your leave request has been accepted. So it says here's a link to it, and then it relates to these details, and it's been approved. This is the email to Steph with all the information in, how many days, when and to I've booked the holiday and the reason why I've given it to. And I've also included in there a direct link to our spreadsheet where we log them all. And then the leave request and the please log one has been duplicated to me. You'll see I'm in here 3 times because I'm the bloke who's requested it and the bloke who's received it. So if we go back and we have a look at my flows and go to team flows, also IT, we can see down here we've got our these have succeeded. So let me just take you through it so you can see, and we'll also jump across to where it's updated the items as well. So you see all this information in here for the flow. It gives you the outcome of everything, so you can use these to trigger other things if you need to. And when you come down the bottom here, you've got start and approval. You see all the outcomes for that. You can go into the condition, so met that condition, and then every step that is done down here. So I can see if I've got any problems, I can see people's email addresses. I can see what the outcome of that was, where it went to. I can see I've got a status 200, which means it's been delivered okay, and exactly where it went. So it's very easy to find out where you went wrong, or more likely to find out why Microsoft has suddenly changed an element of it, in particular here, the approval process. They're not great at documenting it, but there is a good online community to ask and to put in and to search. If I just jump across to SharePoint now, you'll see on that leave request, it has updated the elements on there as well. So if I go to view my holiday requests, okay, and we go down to this one here, this is the one that I put in, and it says yes and yes, and it wouldn't have said that unless I'd approved it. So this is where I can very much turn around and go group by team leader or group by reason. I've got the total amount of days here that have been booked off, so I can see the sum here for me as Matthew Setchell is 52, and I've approved 23. So I can see very quickly and get all the information I need, and then I can export it to Excel. It doesn't download an Excel document. It does something called an IQY file, but I can use that here, and I can see everything that's been requested, and I can filter it straight away as well. So it's very easy to do. So if I just jump back and I talk about flow just one last time. What else can you do with flow? What else is there that you might want to take advantage of when you're creating them? Well, it works across lots of different systems. So let's just have a look at some of those. So come down here, add an action. So I can tell it to, for example, with Excel, I can add new rows, delete a row, update a row in a specific document. I can get tables worth of information to include in other stuff. In SharePoint, I can get it to have a look at folders or document shares, individual items in there, and when they're changed or file properties are changed, it can then put in an action as well. So for example, we have it for when we update the timetable, it emails everybody out. And within that email, it also, because one of the options here is MSM weather, it also allows me to get the forecast for today or forecast for tomorrow and send it in that email as well. So they'll get a copy of the timetable and it will tell them what the weather is going to be like. Not that it matters at the moment because I can't go outside. So you can put that into there as well. Other things that you can do is you can use it to geo trigger. So it will, if somebody goes into a certain area and they've got the app on their phone, it will activate stuff. And you can also get it to do Teams as well. So you can get it to post stuff into Teams. You can get information out of Teams using it. So you can create a channel, all kinds of stuff on there as well. And on a more simple level, what a lot of people go to it for is for Microsoft Forms. So when you go into Forms, there's a whole host of stuff that you can do once you've got the response details on a particular form. So you turn around and say the form that you want. So car parking space, and you can tell it to get a particular item, a particular ID for the responses, and then action stuff on the results that have come through from there. So what you'd do for that one, you'd have your triggers when an item is created in a a Microsoft form, and that would give you the ID here of the response that's been created. Okay, so you can do that and run that trigger off there as well. So huge potential with this system to save a lot of time, and once you've got them set up, they will just work. It is sometimes a little bit of a faff to get them started, but hopefully, if I just recap what we've done, we've gone in and showed you how to create them, and we've shown you how to create a SharePoint list in the first place to get the data. Then we've gone in and shown you how to create a flow on that SharePoint data, the trigger being when it's updated or edited, and then we've shown you how to go through and set some actions as a result of that flow being triggered. So hopefully that's been useful. Sorry about the random change in the authorizer bit of it, but hopefully that's been quite useful. If you're one of our supported schools, we will build these for you. So have a look more about the options that we've given you that we could build. We'll build them for you. The best way to plan flows is to actually draw them out and go, what steps do you want to do? Once you've got that, it's actually quite easy to build a technical solution for them. So if you want to do that, then feel free to drop us a line and we can help you. If you're not on one of our supported schools, then still drop us a line. We'll see what we can do to help by all means. Somebody's asked here about, is it only one faculty license? Yes, Power Automate is in that license. You are rate limited. I've never seen anybody touch it at all at the moment, so you are a bit rate limited to how many you can do in one go, but there's plenty of options to upgrade if you need to for quite a little, not that much money. The other thing I talked earlier on about giving other people access to them, so you can share your flows with other people, and that then puts them into the team flows and multiple people can access them and look at them. But these connections down here is where you'd connect it to a different account. So you'd perhaps maybe want a different Office 365 Outlook account. You can come in here and you can add an extra person into here, but they do need to be there at the time of doing it to put in their username and password. So that's really useful. As I say, if you want to not come from Matt at Laws IT, I might want it to come from somewhere else. I can put their details into there as well. I've also got the analytics, so I can click on this and see what people have done on there as well, and get all that information by how often it's run. So the one that I've done today, for example, hasn't been run at all. But if I was actually to go back into my list of flows, let's find one that is actually used quite a lot. Let's go to the quote provider one. You can see these are all the quotes that have come down here. This one's still running because it hasn't been approved yet because it's still in my inbox. But if I have a look on the analytics, I can see how often that's been used. So it's been run 30 times in the last month, I believe that would be, and how often it's been done. And I can have a look at a particular day and see anything like that. Also quickly jump into errors and understand why there's been an error on there as well. So that one had a bad gateway for whatever reason, but you can find all that information really quickly. Hopefully you've seen, because I've had to, how easy it is to also look in and get the information to fix it as well. So again, perhaps not for beginners, definitely probably not for beginners, but it doesn't take too much to sit down and have a play with it as well. Finally, the other thing that you might be interested to know in why you might want to use a SharePoint list, if I go across to that as well, is you can take all that information and put that information into Power BI. So if I go into Lords IT and I have a look down here at my server information list, and I can, these are all the servers that we've got in our schools, and I could, for example, go here and have a look and say group by operating system. So it gives me a really good breakdown of that for my planning and what I might need to do. But also, in addition, I can use all this information, okay, and create graphs and stuff in Power BI based on the spec. You can also use it for holidays and see who's booked off once and had what leave for different reasons, and that's all automatically created for you. So you could just set basically the SharePoint list as your data source, and then you can use that as well. So that's the end of this session. And if you want to ask me any questions, I'm on Twitter as @msetchell. So come along and give me some feedback on it. It's the first time that I've done it like this, so please be kind. But I'd be appreciative of any feedback of how you found it and about my presentation and what like. And I'll try my best to make it work next time. All right, thanks everybody very much. We'll keep the questions open for a little bit now. And you can obviously give us any questions that you've got. But thank you for watching.